Well, good morning, everybody. You are welcome to come in to the top violations overview presented by CRMLS for the North San Diego County Association of Realtors. My name is Jeff Smetana, and I will be your presenter today. I'm going to give everyone a few more minutes to come on in. It is 10:01. I'll probably do 2 or 3 more minutes and see that see what our count gets to in our attendees. And once it looks like it's pretty full, we'll go ahead and get started. As I said, this is Jeff from CRMLS. I'm the Director of Compliance. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is all compliance related. So I'm the guy to talk to. You are all on mute because with webinars, that's sort of the protocols because we can't really have everybody chiming in and making comments. So what we'll do is use the chat. Now, if you've not done Zoom before, you can scroll down to the bottom of your video view, and there should be a small horizontal menu that pops up, and there's a chat button there. And so when you open up that chat panel, you can type your questions in there. I will keep an eye on that chat. I will try to stop at various times in the presentation and try to get through all of your questions. I will do my very best to do that. So whatever you want to know about, go ahead and pop it in there. And like I said, I'll try to get to it. Okay, so let's get started. What we are going to talk about today is the CRMLS rules and the citation policy for the compliance department. I'm going to talk to you about some of the top violations, which doesn't mean that they're top because we love them. It just means that they're the rules that are most often violated and which warnings and citations are issued on. So moving forward, if you have not ever become familiarized with the MLS rules, our webpage on CRMLS.org for the compliance department is really robust. There is a lot of information there. I love doing presentations, but I think that you would find if you spent 20 or 30 minutes on the compliance page and looked at the FAQs, the frequently asked questions, there's dozens of those. There's videos, there's webinars, there's slideshows, there's knowledge-based articles, lots and lots of information for you there. If you did nothing else but look at the FAQs, I can tell you from experience that you would be ahead of 90% of your peers and colleagues in terms of your knowledge about compliance and the rules and the citation policy. So if I don't cover things today and you are continually curious, go ahead and take a look there and see what you can come up with. And if we don't have the information there, we will get it for you. So we're going to talk about the rules. We're also going to talk about the citation policy. So they are two separate things. The rules are what have been created coming down to us at CRMLS through NAR, the NAR model rules, and the CAR model rules. Those are MLS rules by which we are obligated to perform. So the rule set that we operate under is a very appropriate, very complete representation of all the rules that come down from NAR and CAR with some slight modifications for the practice areas that our customers deal with. So there's the rule set and then there's the citation policy. The citation policy is also available on our webpage. It is a document that basically that looks like this. This is an excerpt. It tells you what the rule is, whether or not it gets a warning. Okay, in other words, if it gets a warning, you don't just get a citation, you get an opportunity to make a change and fix something. Then it'll tell you what the rule is all about and also the associated fine. Now, the thing you need to know about the citation policy is that once you do get a citation, you do have 2 business days to correct it. If you don't, you could be subject to another violation for failure to correct. This is important because really the job that we do here that is of prime importance is to keep the data accurate. It's not really so much that the citations, are the most important thing. The goal is to get the inaccurate or erroneous or inappropriate content in the listings changed, fixed, or removed so that everything is accurate. That's how it works. If you ever did get a citation, you would know that you do have 20 calendar days to either pay the citation or file a review request. And what that is it's like an appeal. So if you don't agree that the citation was properly issued, or you have some evidence that contradicts the citation and would overcome it, you are able to submit a citation review request. That can be done online on our webpage as well. Once you send in the review request, your invoice, which is the request for payment of your fine, gets postponed, and nothing happens until after a review takes place, which is generally in the form of a hearing with your Pro Standards Committee at the AOR. So that is a good, it's full due process for you. If you really want to have your argument heard, then your peers on the Pro Standards Committee be happy to listen to that. And it could get overturned, or your fine could get waived or reduced. But like I said, it's very helpful if you have good arguments, because we really do try to only send out citations for stuff that we have really good solid evidence on. So citation policy, something you should also be looking at. All right, well, don't forget, guys, if you have questions, open the chat window, scroll down on your screen, open the chat, and go ahead and type your chat questions in there, and I'll get to them. So the top violations we're going to talk about, these 5 that you see on the screen right here are pretty much the constantly or consistent top 5. They have to do with photo issues, which include branding. We're going to talk about that in specificity. It also has to do with people, quote unquote, borrowing other people's photos or images. The other issue is no exterior photo. It's a pretty simple rule to comply with, but we do find that people are still not getting their one compliant photo into their listing in a timely manner. Inaccurate information is a very broad rule that could constitute any kind of info that you put in your listing that's just not right, from wrong room count to APN, anything like that. Misuse of public remarks, also a pretty simple rule to follow. You can only have a certain type of remark in the public facing comments. It needs to refer only to the property itself and nothing else really, but we do have a lot of those citations going out. And then failure to correct. So this is one that could certainly easily be avoided. Like I said earlier on the previous slide, if you do get a citation, you do have 2 business days to correct whatever is faulty about your listing. However, lots of people just sort of run that stop sign and wind up getting themselves a second citation, which is unfortunate. So let's go into some of the specifics. So Rule 11.5 is a photo rule. And what this has to do with is what you can and cannot have in your photographs. A lot of this is somewhat common sense, but we do have quite a few violations. The things that you can't have anything about personal contact information, anything about you or your brokerage or your agency, no contact, no email, no messages or solicitations. And when I say photographs, it also includes video media. So if you have virtual tours, the same rule applies. Now, if you can't guess what the absolute top way to violate this rule is, I'll make it real easy for you. It is having your sign in your photos. That is a branding violation. The photo should be neutral. They are not meant to be an advertisement platform. They are meant to display the property and the characteristics and the features. But we do have lots and lots of photos that come through with the sign in there, and that has the agent's name and the contact information and the brokerage. And it's problematic, guys, because buyer's agents are sending your listing out to their clients, and lo and behold, there is your contact information in the photos, and that's a bit of an unfair advantage. It's called branding, and it is the top way to violate this rule. Any images of people or animals that are not really directly related to the listing are also inappropriate. Now, we do make some allowances if they make sense, and if the people are definitely unidentifiable. This is a legal thing, right? So if you have beachfront property or a coastal community in which you're selling and you want to show an aerial shot of the coast, and there's people lying on the beach, but you don't know who they are, they're far away, that's totally fine. That's reasonable. It makes sense in the context of your listing. But if you have a beautiful downtown shopping center or a Main Street shopping area near your listing and you want to feature that, and you take a picture and there's a bunch of identifiable shoppers walking around in the photo, that's going to be a problem. We're going to take that photo down. Same thing with animals. If you have horse property or whatever it might be, and the animals are there as part of the scenery or part of the characteristics of the property, that's fine. But we're not allowing people to sort of feature that particular horse that they fell in love with, or the bulldog of the house, and you want to show that cute guy in your photos. We're not going to allow that as well. So this particular violation is an automatic citation. There's no warning. We will take the photo down, or the inappropriate photo, and remove it, and that is a $100 fine with an immediate citation. Moving on to more photo issues. So this copyright issue, it's Rule 11.5. It's got some legal aspects to it. You might have heard of the Federal Copyright Act. Well, this is a federal law that governs all of the creative content, right, that's out there in the marketplace. If you take your photos or your videos yourself, you have a copyright on that material. You can do whatever you want with it. If you did not create the media that you want to put in your listing, you need permission to use it. That's generally what the Federal Copyright Act says. And if you use someone else's creation without their written permission, you may have violated copyright law. The problem really comes in regards to the risk that is associated with that. The Federal Copyright Act has statutory damages provisions, which can be very, very heavy. You can go up to $150,000 per unauthorized use. That is what it could cost you to not have written permission to put photos or videos in your listing with, again, without someone else's written permission. So you don't need permission, again, if you take the photos yourself or create the content yourself. If someone else does it for you, such as a professional photographer or a videographer, you need their permission. You also need permission if you take photos from somewhere else or find them. You can't just go out on the web and find a Google Images or something and use that in your listing. That's also a violation of the law and our rules. So that can be problematic and it can be expensive. So this is a significant violation. It is a $1,500 fine, and there is no warning. We will remove the copyrighted material. We'll ask you if you have a written authorization, and you do need to have that in place before you use it. Getting the written permission after you put it in your listing does not solve the violation. What do you do if you want to use someone else's media content and you need that written permission? Well, you can get it in writing in the form of an email or something like that, but that's sort of not going all the way. CAR has drafted a document, a stock document called the PIA, the Property Images Agreement. And if you use this form and fill it out correctly, you will get the sufficient rights and or license that you need to use that content. I want to give you a couple of caution tips here. Photographers will often try to get you to sign their agreement. They will create some form of license or other types of permission for you to use their photos. These are almost universally inadequate under the law and under our rule set. The rights that you need to have are somewhat extensive, right? They need to be worldwide and unlimited and in perpetuity and all those fancy lawyer words. Photographer agreements are notoriously bad and fall short of that. So if you are working with a professional provider, third party, and they try to get you to sign their agreement, use caution. Either have your legal counsel look it over, or just talk to your photographer and say, no, I would really rather prefer that we use the PIA form. And if you do that, you should be okay. And again, make sure you have this before you put the listings in and publish the listing. Last photo issue, exterior photograph requirement. All right, so within 2 calendar days of entering your listing and publishing it, you need to have a photo in. It needs to be a photo of a significant portion of the exterior of the property. A view photo of the mountain view doesn't count. View of the backyard doesn't count. It really needs to be the significant portion of the exterior of the property. Doesn't have to be the front, could be the back, could be the side, whatever makes sense for you. Some slope homes, the front door, the front elevation is not its best feature. The backside is often, very appealing. So it just needs to be one photo within 2 business days. If you cancel the listing within 5 calendar days, this photo requirement won't matter. But if you close within the 5 days, you have to have still performed according to this rule. And then if you have business opportunity listings, there's no requirement for photos. So I see one question in the chat. It says, I see so many of these violations, my correction button is gray, no way to report. Interesting. Okay, that's a tech issue. Valerie, I think, Valerie, you might want to just call into our CCD, our customer care department, and they'll open up your Paragon platform with you and see what that problem is. And I'll give you all that contact information at the end of the presentation. Judith is asking a question. If it is a high-rise condo, is it okay to show the front entrance? Judith, great question. Yes, that's fine. So with condos, you can show maybe the front elevation. Sometimes you have a ground floor condo, there's a door and then a greenhouse window and a little portion of the green belt. That makes sense. Otherwise, if you want to back up and take a picture of the whole building, that's fine too. Those both represent the structure for a condo building. Carol asked, does it need to be the first photo on the listing? The answer is no. This might be a change for you guys. Excuse me, if I recall correctly, the former Paragon rule set that you were working under for many years did require it to be the first photo. We don't have that requirement. If you want that first thumbnail image, right, the one that kind of goes out to all the IDX sites and everywhere, to be something else, then that's up to you. We're not going to tell you how to best market your property, as long as you have one compliant photo in your slide deck. If you have a view from the home that is fantastic and you want that to be the first thing people see, you can put that the first photo. Or if the kitchen is spectacular, same thing. So no, it doesn't need to be the first photo in the queue. Excuse me. All right, so before I move on from photographs and images and branding and copyright issues, any other questions on any of that? Okay, so we're going to move on to the public remarks. This is, again, a fairly common sense rule. There's certain things you can and can't put in the public remarks. What these remarks should be is basically you referring to the characteristics and the qualities, the location, and the good things about the listing. If you go outside of that, chances are you're going to break this rule. So some examples here are gate codes, showing instructions, compensation information, lockbox info, occupancy status. So, don't put things in there like vacant, go direct. That's not something that's referring to the characteristics and quality of the property. That's kind of a showing instruction. And the buyers, the consumers out there don't need to know that. That is a remark that's best directed at the agents, right? So you want to keep that in the private remarks. Definitely don't put any contact information. We do unfortunately see this a lot. People get a little bit carried away. Call now for a showing. That's okay because that's not really a solicitation and it doesn't have your personal information in it. But if you say call Judy at 626 ... for a showing, that's going to be a violation. No warning on this one, guys. The inappropriate information will be removed and the citation will go out. Don't put your open house info or your brokerage info or your phone number again. And then also kind of keep in mind if it ever comes to pass that you have anything in there that's just inappropriate or might violate fair housing laws and things like that, discriminatory language, that's also certainly a violation. Easy enough rule to follow, but unfortunately quite commonly violated. Let's see. Okay, so if you have personal info or things that you want to say about yourself that doesn't appropriately fit in the public remarks, you can always use the syndication remarks field. That's a free-for-all there. You can put what you want in there. Inaccurate information, Rule 8.3. This is a very broad rule, and it's basically just referring to the idea that what you put into your listing needs to be as accurate as possible, according to your knowledge. It could be something as simple as you have the wrong APN, you have the wrong room count, wrong square footage. These things are going to get reported to us. The good news on this rule is that it's a warning, right? So you get 2 business days to make the correction. We will send you a notice that says, hey, we've been informed that you've got some inaccurate info in your listing here, and this is specifically what we've seen or been told. So can you please go in within 2 business days and make the change? Almost all of these get corrected. So we really don't issue many of these particular citations because sometimes by the time we get to the report, it's already been corrected. Or after the warning goes out, most people do make this correction. So keep in mind, you got to do your best to make your data and your information in your listing as accurate as possible. Failure to correct. Now, this is something that's totally avoidable. If you were to get a warning for an 8.3, which you had inaccurate information, and you didn't fix it within 2 business days, you could get the citation for the 8.3. Now, that's not the end of the story, because the goal here, as I said, is to get the data fixed. Now, if we go back after 2 more business days after your citation and the data is still incorrect, you could definitely get another citation. Again, end goal being to make the data accurate. So please don't get a failure to correct violation. It's totally avoidable. Carol asked a question. How do you notify a warning? Carol, everything that comes from the compliance department is in the form of an email. All right, and this is important for you guys to know because we do get a lot of excuses such as, I didn't get that email. I don't use that email address anymore. Unfortunately, that's not a meritorious excuse. Rule 12.22 says that you must have your active and regularly monitored email in your office information in the system. Our compliance software will pull that email and send you all the information on any case to that particular email. And if you haven't updated in a long time, or if you simply don't look at your email or it went to spam, it's really not our obligation to allow an exception for that. We only have one way of getting a hold of you, and that's through that email. So please make sure your information in your roster is correct. So that's how you would get a warning. That's how you get a citation or any other kind of notice from compliance. All right, so that was the top 5. Before I move on to another bigger issue, do we have any questions on those specific violations that I talked about? Okay, if you do, if you think of anything, pop it in the chat and we'll take a look. All right, so now I'm going to move on to what we call the clear cooperation policy. If you have not, for some reason, become aware of this, this is a very significant change to the advertising rules. Stephanie says, is there another slide? I am showing a slide. I hope that you can see it. It should say mandatory submission rule 7.9 on your screen. This is the clear cooperation rule. What is this? Well, this is a change. You guys may have heard the term pocket listing. or office exclusive or off MLS. Oh, no, it says photographer still. How about now? I will trust that what you see on your screen, other than Stephanie, should show the slide for Rule 7.9. I'm going to go over it unless I hear otherwise. That's what it says. Okay, so the clear cooperation policy. Again, this deals with pocket listings. All right, thanks, Alicia. Thanks, Carol, for letting me know it's the right slide. Sorry for the delay. What this is the rule regarding public marketing of a listing that you haven't put in the MLS. So for years and years, you would, even though you're a member of an MLS and you're a broker or an agent and you've agreed by joining an MLS, you agree to put all your listings in. I mean, that's really the point. It's so that you can cooperate. You agree that you'll put your listings in so that other people can see them and sell them. And that's what everybody else is saying to you, right? They're putting their listings in so you can see them and sell them. And that's called cooperation. However, there has, certainly been occasions where it doesn't make sense, or the seller simply prefers that you don't put their listing in the MLS. And for many years, it's been allowed, and frankly, it is still allowed for a seller to instruct you as a listing broker to not put their listing in the MLS. Well, for many years, you could do something called an office exclusive or a pocket listing, and you could file an exclusion form, instructions from your seller. It says, we don't want this in the MLS. Then you could take that listing and go out and do whatever you wanted with it. You could put up your sign and market it to your heart's content and not have to cooperate with the people that you agreed to cooperate with. NAR took this up last year, and long story short, a new policy was created, and from that, a new rule was created dealing with this. What you see on the screen is the mandatory submission upon marketing rule. This is the end result of the clear cooperation policy that is now in our rule set. The big change, I will just cut to the chase, is you can still exclude a listing, but if you market it to the public now, you're going to break this rule. You're going to have 1 business day to put that listing in the MLS for cooperation. Okay, so if you have a listing that is not in the MLS yet, but you have an effective listing agreement and you market that to the public, you now have 1 business day to put it into the MLS for cooperation. In the past, it would not necessarily have been a violation. It is now. All right, so what you see on the screen is the rule. The first sentence is basically what I just told you. Within 1 business day of marketing or advertising a property to any member of the public, blah, 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 you must submit the property in the MLS for cooperation with other participants. All right, so a couple of specifics here. What do you need to know beyond that? Well, you need to know what marketing and advertising is, because that is the conduct that would cause you to be in violation of the rule. And our rule defines it here. It says marketing and advertising includes, but is not limited to, any information about the property or its availability for sale displayed on any signs, websites, social media, brokerage or franchise operated websites, communications, whether verbal or written, multi-brokerage or franchise listing sharing networks, flyers or written material on any applications, or by conducting an open house. So a lot of words to describe what I think we all intuitively know about what is marketing. Marketing is any efforts, communications that you make about your listing in order to attract interest. All right. So that's what marketing is. Now, it does say that advertising or marketing a property to any member of the public is what triggers this. So second, that factor you need to be aware of is who is the public and who is not the public. So if there's a group of people that by talking to or marketing to, I violate this rule, I need to know who that is and who it isn't. Our rule does define that for you in the last sentence. It says any individual or entity that has signed within the last year a disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship form, otherwise known as an AD, that identifies the listing broker shall not be considered a member of the public under this rule. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If you have a listing, your seller doesn't want it in the MLS, there are certain people you can talk to about it, you can market to. And those people are who you would consider your real clients. Right? Because not everybody is the same. Not all the people you're working with have the same status and relationship with you. Some people have just been on your email blast for 10 years. Some people you might have done a deal with them 5 or 6 years ago. But there are some folks who are you actively working with. And you know that under real estate law, you need to get an AD form signed with those folks as soon as is practical. If you have that, and as you know, that's signed with your broker. If you have that, then those folks who sign that with your broker are not the public. If you have an off-MLS listing and you speak to them or send them marketing material about that listing, you're not going to violate the rule. All right, so that's a lot of words. Let's take a look at a couple of pictures here. This is the visual slide for everything I just talked about. 2 things you need to understand with clear cooperation when you have an off-MLS listing. Who is the public and what is marketing? So who is the public? Again, anyone who has signed the AD form with your brokerage in the last year is not the public. And there's another group, guys, and that is the other agents in your office. Now, I don't mean every agent under the same franchise as you in the state of California. If you're KW or C21 or whatever, you don't get to talk about your off-MLS listing with anybody who has that logo on their business card. The only folks who would be exempt from this are the actual agents under the common broker's license. So if you were to look up your broker on the DRE website, there's going to be a list of agents that broker is responsible for. If someone is on that list and you are on that list or you are that broker, those folks are not the public. So if you have an off-MLS listing and you want to talk about it with those agents in your office at a sales meeting, that's okay, provided there are no people in that meeting that are not on that list. And then you can also market that listing to the folks who have the AD form signed with your brokerage. What is marketing? Again, I think it's pretty obvious and intuitive. It's anything like this, putting it on portals, Realtor.com, Zillow, putting it on your social media, putting up a sign, having an open house, making flyers, sending out an email blast, meeting with a client to talk about the listing, going to a big sales meeting where there's people who are present that are not part of your office. These are all marketing, which would constitute public marketing and could trigger the violation. So what does this mean for you? Well, first of all, if you don't do exclusions and you never take off MLS listings, not something you should be all that concerned about. If you always take your listings and get them in to the MLS for sale right away, or within whatever your exclusion form says, and you don't market to the public during that interim period, you're fine. If you do use exclusion forms, you need to be very aware of this and very mindful of it. Let's see, Valerie says the correction button on top is no longer in use. Below the photo is a house button with a check mark on it. Okay, so Valerie has pointed out in the chat that there's a different reporting mechanism in the PARAGON system. Thank you for pointing out that detail. All right, so the process for you in your workflow related to the clear cooperation rules, again, as I just said, if you don't do exclusions, it doesn't matter to you. If you do use exclusions, a few things you need to be aware of. Now, on this slide, you're going to see item 2A. It says listing broker has 2 business days from the listing contract date to input the listing in the MLS. That's a rule that's always been around, right? That's rule 7.8. That's the mandatory submission rule. That's always been there. Within 2 business days of the effective date of your listing agreement, you have to make a decision. And this is the decision as to whether you are going to put it in the MLS or not. If you are, you need to put it into one of the statuses that are available for cooperation. And if you're not, you need to file your exclusion form, the SELM. You guys should all be very familiar with that rule. Once your listing agreement is effective, which means the date of the last signature or the beginning date of the listing period, whichever is later, that triggers 2 business days for you to make that decision with your seller. Are we putting this in, or do we need to exclude it for a little while to complete repairs or something along those lines? And if you are, then you need to turn that form in within those 2 business days. So you always have to comply with that rule. You'll note there that there is a new status, which is coming soon, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So if you do exclude your listing, that's when you are someone who needs to be mindful of clear cooperation rules. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about these statuses and how some of this stuff can be confusing, and I will try to unconfuse you on this. Let's see, I think I saw something come through the Q&A. Suzanne has put in the Q&A, which is fine. I'll look at that as well. Chat is probably better, but Q&A is fine. It says, what then is the use of a pocket listing for the seller? Okay, so that's a broader sort of consideration. If the seller doesn't want their listing on the MLS, generally it's for privacy concerns, right? They don't want signs up. They don't want people knocking on their door, and that's fine. But the opportunity for the seller now is for you to market it only to those clients that you have the AD form signed with or the other agents in your office. So it is a limited market, and that is the big change. The use of it is that maybe you have a huge client base that you have a lot of AD forms signed with those people. Or you have a very big office. That's certainly a built-in benefit here of the clear cooperation policy. So it's still useful for privacy's sake, but it is a change. It is a change. You cannot simply just market it to the whole world, even though you've agreed to join an MLS that says, I would agree to put this in. Let's see. Okay, so talking a little bit about some statuses. Now this slide has some details on it. On the left, you see registered. I'm not going to go over that really with you guys because that's exclusion. That is the exclusion situation. If you have an MLS, a listing that's not going in the MLS, you still need to use your form. And I'm going to answer your question here, Chase, in a second. Registered is something that's going to be built into your Paragon system in the near future, where you won't have to send us the form, but until that happens, you still do. So Chase has asked a question on this. I was told by support at CRMLS that they are no longer requiring us to send in the NCLM form that we need to have in our file for auditing. Is this true? And the answer is, for you folks using Paragon, the answer is no. For now, you still do need to send in your exclusion forms. The reason that you wouldn't have to is when registered becomes available, that's something that you can just go into the system and register your listing as opposed to sending the form. So one way or another, we need to be aware of it. We need to be aware of it. Once you get registered as a status, which again, you don't have yet, you won't need to send us forms. So for now, Chase, you do need to continue to follow the standard process. I'm not sure who told you that. Maybe they were thinking of the matrix system or a flex. Those are a little bit different. Okay, so these are the options. So focusing on active and coming soon, those are your 2 options. Remember that within 2 business days of the effective date of your listing agreement, you need to make a decision. Are we putting this in the MLS or not? And if the answer is yes, in the past, you would only have the choice to go active. Well, for several months now, you've also had a new choice called coming soon. What are the differences? What are the specifics of these statuses? Well, an active listing is just the same way it's always been. I mean, you guys know what an active listing is. It's completely marketable. It's displayed in the MLS in every single possible manner. Commission is offered. That means it's for sale, right? And you have to put in your buyer's compensation. DOM, which stands for days on market, is counting because it's on the market. It's fully distributed to the MLS. That means it's going out from the MLS to all the IDX websites out there, which are the broker and agent websites. And it's also going out to the syndication platforms like Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com. And then showings are, of course, allowed because that listing is live and good to go. Coming soon, and I'm going to get your question here in a second, Christina. Coming soon is a different status. It's a new status. The rationale for this status has always been for years, because we've been asked about it for years. What if I have a listing and I really want to get it out and get some visibility and get some interest going, but it's not really ready? Why can't we get a period to put it into the list, the MLS, and not get hit with days on market? Why can't we have that? Well, now you can. All right, it is available to you. Coming soon is very similar to an active listing, guys, with a few unique differences. The similarities: for a coming soon listing, you can market it. There's nothing wrong with putting up your sign and marketing to your heart's content about your coming soon listing. This is kind of where people get confused with clear cooperation. I get questions like, well, who can I talk to about my coming soon listing? And the answer is anybody you want. Why? Because a coming soon listing is in the MLS. It's in the MLS. You only need to worry about public marketing in cases where your listing is not in the MLS. Only when you've excluded your listing. It's not in there. There is no status. It's not there. Only in those cases do you need to worry about who you're talking to and what you're saying. So when you have a coming soon, you can do whatever you want, okay? Just treat it like an active listing with a few quick exceptions. It's fully displayed in the MLS. It's not hidden in any way. Searchable, savable, emailable, everything you can do with an active in the MLS, you can do with a coming soon. Commission is offered. That it's for sale. Okay, it is for sale. You have to have compensation in there. If your seller gets an offer while the listing is in coming soon, they can accept the offer and off you guys go. No days on market though. Why? Interesting. All right, so you are going to get a limited amount of time for no days on market, and that time limit is 21 days. So for 21 days, you can be in coming soon status. Your listing is completely visible, right? Everybody can find out about it, but you're not getting hit with days on market. 21 days is what we would classify as soon. It's not coming somewhere way down the road. It's coming soon. 3 weeks is a reasonable amount of time generally for listing agents to finish up whatever it is they need to do with that listing to get it fully ready, finish the repairs, get the tenants relocated, so on and so forth. It is limited in its distribution through the MLS. That means it's going out to IDX. So if you are an agent or a broker and you have a website and it has search capabilities because you get a data feed from us, coming soons are going to show up. But they're not going to be sent out to the platforms like Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com. Trulia, the coming soon listings are not going to appear there from our feed. Now, a broker, a listing broker who has a coming soon, if they want to post it on some of those sites, that's up to them, but we're not sending it out. There is a form required. So it's a form, it's called the coming soon form. I'm going to show you it in a minute. It is not something you need to send to us. It's a very clean and thorough advisory to your sellers about what coming soon means and the benefits and potential disadvantages. And you need to have that in your file before you go into coming soon. But the biggest difference is no showings. No showings on that coming soon while it's in that status. Why? Well, because first of all, it has to be different than active somehow. Otherwise, it's just an active listing. But it follows the rationale. So if you have a listing that you want to get a period of no DOM, what you're telling us is it's not 100% ready to meet the world. And if that's the case, and it should be if you're using this status, then it makes logical sense that it's not ready for showings. And I mean no showings by the listing broker or buyer's agents. It has nothing to do with who's the public or not. I'll repeat that. You don't need to worry about who is the public or not, or who has an AD form signed. Those considerations only deal with off MLS listings. If you have a coming soon, you are in the MLS and you are subject to the coming soon rules. So you can use coming soon. You can stay in for 21 days. You don't have to use the full 21 days. If your seller decides on day 10, let's go to full active, then you're fine. You can do that. You know, you can't go backwards. You can't go from active back to coming soon because that's illogical. Once it's active, it's here. It can never be coming soon again. And you cannot get any extensions on the 21-day period, guys. I've been asked this. The system, the MLS system, will push your listing from coming soon to active on day 22. All right, so let me take some questions on coming soon. I see one in here from Christina. It says, please confirm if we submit a listing as coming soon, we do not have to submit the CELM. That is correct, because you are not excluding the listing. The CELM is for a listing which your sellers do not want you to put in the MLS. If you are putting a listing into coming soon, it is in the MLS. It is not excluded. It's in there for sale. So yes, logically, that's the only answer. Carol says, can you have photos taken on coming soon? Not only can you, Carol, you have to. Coming soon listings are subject to all the same rules as an active listing. You have to have at least one compliant photo. You can't put your signs in the photos. You can't put the wrong thing in the public remarks. Guys, I think it's helpful if you think of a coming soon listing in this way. Think of it as an active listing that you can't show. Right? Obviously there's some more finer points regarding this, but it's an active listing that you can't show while it's in that status. That's really as simple as it gets. It's in there. It's just like an active, except you can't show it. You can market it. You're trying to sell it. It is fully displayed. That thing is good to go other than for showings. Any more questions on coming soon? So if you want to use coming soon, here's the form. It's basically just an advisory and an instruction that fully informs your sellers of what can and can't be done. You need to have that before you go into coming soon. This is available on our website. It's also available in zip forms in the CRMLS library. You don't need to send it to us. It's just like anything else in your transactions. You want these things from your seller in writing. So we made this form for you. So get that form before you're going to coming soon. Talk to your sellers about what it all means and go from there. There it is. There's a link on our website for that coming soon form. Super easy. For Paragon, there's the C, the coming soon status. So when you're inputting your listing, it's going to ask you what status you want to use, and you will choose coming soon at that point. The start showing date. So if you're using coming soon, you also want to put in this start showing date, which is basically when it's going to go to active. Okay. This allows the buyer's agents to know what's going on. So that if they call you while you're in coming soon and they want to schedule a showing, they know basically when that's going to be possible. And again, the date can't be more than 21 days. In fact, the system won't allow you to go more than 21 days when you put that in there. All right. Anything else on coming soon? Okay. Exclusion forms. So you know, and I've gone over this already today, that you need to file an exclusion form if you're not putting your listing in the MLS for cooperation within the 2 business days of the effective date of the agreement. This is all totally doable on our website. You can go to that link there. You can go to the San Diego page, the Paragon resources. You can submit that online, or you can use the SELM and scan it and send it to us as well. All right, so here's a rule change that has to do with coming soon. And this is where it comes down in the rules that you can't show the coming soon. For any property in which listing broker selected the status of coming soon or hold, listing broker represents that the property shall have no showings or tours, etc., etc. So that is definitely a rule now. There's the status definition for coming soon. It's as I have described it. There is a couple of other fine points which are, if you're going to market your coming soon, please use the term coming soon in your advertising. And then as far as it's reasonable, please put the date that it's going to be available for showings, or the date that it's going to be active. Hold status, this is new for you guys with the new instance of Paragon that you're using. Hold is somewhat similar to coming soon in that you don't get hit with days on market while you're in hold status. But this is after you've gone live with your listing and something happens with your seller and something needs to pause the process of all your marketing, and you can put it in a hold status for up to 30 days. You can still market it, you can't show it, and again, you won't get hit with days on market. So that's a handy status, I find. So what are the negatives here in terms of, the clear cooperation policy and the coming soon status? We do have some new rules, some new items on the citation policy. These are big ticket items because they're very, very important to the practitioners out there through NAR and CAR and all the other agents and brokers have pushed these things through. Violating these rules, the clear cooperation rule and the coming soon no showings rule, and specifically are subject to a 1% of the list price fine. No less than $500, no more than $2,500. So if you have a listing that's over $250,000, you're probably going to get a $2,500 fine if you break these rules. We do have a sliding scale on these because not every median list price in our regional area that we service is the same. And then also land lots are covered by this as well, and those can be obviously priced a lot lower than a residence. So yeah, that's the fines. I am done with the material. We have done it in under an hour, which is great. Here are some resources for you guys. When you go onto CRMLS.org, there's so much for you there. We have a full broker resources department. You can request trainings there. You can get your tech help through our broker resources department and get education events scheduled as well. Our education department, we do in-person, online, webinars. We have the full knowledge base library. They're happy to help you with anything you guys need in terms of information. Support, that's our call center. So I did, in the chat, I asked someone to check in with our call center on that tech question. And there are the hours, okay, 7 days a week. I don't think it's 24 hours a day. I think it goes up to about 9 o'clock. But we also, there's live chat and the ticketing system, and there are there's a toll-free number there and the local number as well. And then there's our page, like I introduced to you at the beginning of the slideshow. A lot of information there. Spending a little bit of time there gets you really ahead of your colleagues in terms of knowing what it is you can and can't do with regards to your MLS input and use of the MLS. So really, that's it for me, guys. I'm glad that I was able to do this for you in under an hour. I'm still here if you have more questions. I have gotten through all the questions in the chat and the QA. If anybody has any further questions, I'll wait one more minute. But if not, I hope this was helpful. And I thank you for listening. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys down there in San Diego. Carol has a question. What is an exclusion form? An exclusion form is an instruction from your seller when they don't want their listing placed in the MLS. It is a form that they must give you. You must talk to them about it and get them to sign it. They can either exclude their listing for the entire period, or they can exclude it for a couple of weeks. The reason you need this form is because the MLS rules require you to put your listing in the MLS. Okay, generally that's what the MLS is for. That's why you join it. If your seller for some reason doesn't want to, we'll allow it vis-a-vis an exclusion form. And those are available, again, through zip forms, or we have them available. Well, actually, we don't have those on CRMLS.org anymore. So if you don't know what an exclusion form is, chances are you're not excluding listings. But check in with your broker if you need some more direction on that. Okay, so time's up, guys. I appreciate you listening again, and keep in mind that if you need anything directly from us, you can also go to compliance@crmls.org and chat with us directly with an analyst if you have any questions before or after you do something. Hopefully before. Oh, Stephanie has one last question. Hopefully this makes sense. She says, I want to put a sign in my yard advertising that I am an agent. Yes, that's fine. That is not my jurisdiction. You should follow the DRE's advertising laws in all your advertising. So you want to check with your broker on what those requirements are. But from the perspective of the MLS, we don't have any say over anything like that. Okay, well, I'll bid you guys a good day, and I hope you have a fantastic week and good luck out there. And thanks again, North San Diego, Shirley, and everybody else. Okay, bye-bye.